She always folded her thongs, color-coded, by day of the week, a bizarre ritual for someone who couldn't remember our anniversary without Facebook's help. So imagine my reaction when I found Monday's pair soaking in the guest bathroom sink on a Thursday morning, crumpled and reeking faintly of sweat and men's cologne that wasn't mine. I stood there staring at the lacy blue scrap like it was a goddamn murder weapon, wondering if I'd missed some important memo on midweek lingerie laundering. That wasn't the moment I knew. No, that was just the moment the air in the house shifted, like something unseen had finally blinked and started watching me from the corner of the room. She was in the kitchen, humming to herself, cracking eggs into a pan with the smug serenity of someone who believes she's smarter than everyone else in the house. I watched her from the hallway, quiet, still, barely breathing. Her hair was wet, like she'd just showered, but there was no towel in the bathroom, no steam, no puddles. The bed was perfectly made, her side fluffed, undisturbed. But the thermostat was bumped up 2 degrees, and the worn rug in the living room had a scuff mark, one boot-sized, dragging left to right, as if someone had tried to step quietly but misjudged the friction. She poured 2 cups of coffee. 2. I didn't say anything. Just walked in, took mine, kissed her cheek. She flinched. Her smile came a second too late. Her eyes didn't meet mine. That's when it started, not the cheating. I know that came long before. But the shift. The decision. The calm, quiet shift in me that whispered, "Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes, sweetheart." I told her I'd be gone all weekend, Vegas, bachelor party, the whole predictable package. Her response? A little too excited. Her, "I'll miss you," was delivered with the emotional weight of a fast food goodbye. She even double-checked the departure time. Just to make sure. I left Friday morning with a bag full of clothes and a hidden camera sewn into the lining. She waved from the porch in those tiny shorts she wore when she wanted attention, already texting someone before my car hit the corner. What she didn't know was that I doubled back 10 minutes later and parked 3 blocks away. I wasn't going to Vegas. I was going to war. I had my guy stationed already, Jesse. Tall, charming, tattooed, the kind of man women fantasize about cheating with so they can justify the destruction. He was going to hit the bar she liked, start light flirting, test the waters. We gave it a few hours. Then he called me. "She's here," he said. Alone. Hair done. Red lipstick. She smiled when she saw me. It didn't take long. She played coy, gave him the fake name she used for Tinder, the one I found months ago in her deleted messages, the one she thought I'd never see. I was watching it all unfold from a rented SUV across the street, every twitch and touch recorded from Jesse's hidden lapel cam. She laughed too loudly. She touched his forearm. She leaned in close, smelling his neck like she was checking for something familiar. That was the moment I saw the switch in her. She wasn't my wife in that booth. She was a woman hungry to be someone else. They left together around midnight. My house. Our bed. I knew where she was headed because I had already replaced the Wi-Fi router with one that streamed directly to my cloud server. Jesse texted me one word. Inside. I waited exactly 10 minutes. Just enough for her to get comfortable. Then I sent the message. Smile for the camera. I imagined the moment she looked up and saw the tiny GoPro blinking from the bookshelf, the exact one we used to record our honeymoon video. Except this time, the footage was going to a folder named Final Divorce. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. Her reaction, her panic, her realization, that was the climax. The betrayal had already happened long ago. This was just the performance, and I was the quiet, satisfied audience in the dark, finally watching the show I never wanted but always suspected would come. They say the most dangerous lies are the ones wrapped in routines. Ours was wrapped in Sunday brunches and Netflix marathons, where she'd curl up beside me, head on my chest, asking if I wanted more coffee as if the scent of someone else's cologne wasn't still clinging faintly to her sweater. But back then, I wasn't looking for ghosts. I was looking for reasons to keep loving her. And she gave me just enough. Her kisses were still warm, her voice still soft, but there was a glaze in her eyes, like the lights were on but the home we built was already empty. I remember when it began to shift. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, precise, like a scalpel. One day she wanted to rearrange the bedroom feng shui, she said, needed better flow. The next week she tossed out all our framed photos and replaced them with abstract art she said made her feel more alive. I joked about how it looked like a toddler threw paint at a wall during a seizure. She didn't laugh, just stared at the canvas like it was whispering secrets I couldn't hear. She started buying books, self-help, soul-searching, bullshit wrapped in buzzwords about empowerment and boundaries. I asked her one night what was wrong. She smiled and said, "Nothing." I just feel like I've been living for someone else too long. I'm rediscovering me. I nodded, supportive, because that's what you do when your partner says they're healing. You don't ask, healing from what? From me. You just hope their healing doesn't mean erasing you in the process. She started going for walks. Long ones. At night. I just need time with my thoughts, she'd say, slipping out with a hoodie and her phone always in hand. I used to offer to go with her, thinking it might be romantic. She said no. She said she needed space. At first, it sounded like maturity. Then it sounded like a polite way to say, I'm tired of you. She changed her passwords. She locked her phone. She turned off read receipts and made her Instagram private, even blocked me from viewing her stories. When I asked, she said she was just tired of performing and wanted to control her audience. I told her she didn't need to perform for me. She said, that's the problem. I don't know who I am when I'm not. And that's when the first real crack hit. Not in her words, but in the way she looked at me afterward. Like I was just another role she had to step out of to find herself. I started noticing purchases. Little things at first. New skincare. Jewelry she didn't wear around me. Then a hotel charge on a joint card, logged under a spa name I'd never heard her mention. She said it was a last-minute girls' retreat, said it like it was obvious I should have known. But none of her friends mentioned it. And when I asked about pictures, she said she didn't feel the need to prove everything anymore. I didn't push. I swallowed it. Like I was swallowing 1,000 little cuts, each one too shallow to bleed on its own, but together, forming a quiet kind of internal death. Her wardrobe changed. She started wearing red again, the color she used to reserve for nights she wanted to feel desired. Only now, she wore it on Wednesdays, on her way to yoga. I watched her walk out the door, hips swaying, perfume trailing, and I wondered when I'd become the person she stopped dressing for. She came home later, always with an excuse. Traffic. A meeting ran long. Lost track of time. She stopped asking how my day was. She stopped touching me in the kitchen. The distance wasn't in her footsteps, it was in her silence. There were still smiles, sure, but they no longer reached her eyes. They were polite, practiced, the kind you give strangers at the grocery store. She made love to me once in that month. Fast, robotic, distracted. Her eyes were closed the entire time, and when she came, she whispered a name that wasn't mine. I didn't call her on it. I told myself I misheard. But the seed was there now. Cold. Rooted. Growing. The worst part? I still loved her. That's the pathetic truth. I loved her the way a soldier loves a battlefield he's walked 1,000 times, even after the bullets stop flying, because it's familiar, because it's home, even when it's not safe anymore. I told myself it was a phase. That she was lost, not cruel. That she'd circle back to me. But you know what they say about people who find themselves? They usually find someone else in the process. And I could feel it, the slow unraveling, the silent betrayal. Not in what she said, but in what she stopped saying, in what she chose not to share, in the way her body was still beside me in bed, but her soul had packed its bags and was already sleeping somewhere else. I wasn't ready to believe it yet, but I could feel the walls starting to crumble. And I knew that soon, I'd have to choose, whether to keep pretending this was our life, or to finally watch her drop the mask. She left her laptop open one evening while she showered, the screen glowing quietly on the dining table, as if it had something to confess. Normally, I never touched her devices. I believed in privacy and trust, and all those noble concepts that only matter when the person you're with isn't already lying to your face. But that night, something was different. She'd been humming again, off-key, absent-minded, almost euphoric, as she walked into the bathroom with her phone clutched like a lifeline, eyes glazed and mouth smiling at a screen. Not me. The door clicked shut, and the lock slid into place. I didn't move right away. I just listened. No shower water. No brushing. Just silence. A whisper of a voice on the other side, soft, low, intimate. Then laughter. Her laughter. That laugh she used to give me when we were drunk and tangled in sheets and nothing else in the world existed. But it wasn't mine anymore. I turned to the laptop. I didn't plan it. My hands moved before my mind gave permission. The mail tab was open. Her name. A draft. No subject line. Just a body of text, half-written, waiting for her return. Last night was magic. It began. He has no idea. I think I'm ready. Just say the word, and I'll leave him. We can start fresh. I want to wake up beside you. My name wasn't in it. But neither was his. Just that sickening familiarity of infidelity in its rawest form. No drama. No screaming. Just soft deception typed in Arial font. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just read it again, slower this time, as if the words would somehow change meaning the second time around. They didn't. I closed the laptop. Not slammed. Not hard. Just closed it like you'd shut a casket. I turned off the light and sat at the table, staring into the blackness while the water finally turned on behind the bathroom door. She was singing now. Carefree. Cleansed. I sat there as steam snuck under the crack of the door like fog crawling across a battlefield before the first shot. I didn't ask who he was. Didn't need to. It didn't matter. The betrayal wasn't in the details, it was in the ease of it. The way she could write that message, still half wet from our bed, and then shower like it was just another Tuesday. That's when something in me broke, not with noise, not with violence, but with the cold, deliberate snap of a steel cable under too much strain. My emotions didn't rush out, they evacuated, like trained soldiers abandoning a lost cause. No anger. No despair. Just silence. Pure, surgical silence. I watched the door. Heard her drop something in the tub. Laughed again. And I thought to myself, she has no idea she just started a war she won't walk away from. I moved like a man possessed by logic, not grief. Checked the router logs. Her device had pinged unfamiliar MAC addresses after midnight 3 times last week. Her calendar? Appointments labeled meditation at addresses that led to parking lots and construction zones. I took screenshots. Not for confrontation. For preparation. Her phone, always glued to her hand, had a backup running to the cloud. I cracked the login within an hour, because I'd made the damn password for her years ago. The messages hit like bullets, photos, emojis, audio clips of breathy moans and whispered promises. She was more alive in those threads than she had been in our home for the past 6 months. It was like watching someone else wear her skin and speak with her voice, but without any of the soul I once loved. I cataloged everything. I didn't skip a single file. Not out of vengeance, but precision. There would be no screaming match, no broken dishes, no pathetic pleas. Only documentation. Truth. Strategy. I started transferring files to a private drive. Bought a burner phone. Created aliases. Laid digital traps. All the while, she sang in the shower like her future wasn't disintegrating in the next room. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, smiling, glowing, I smiled back. I kissed her cheek. I told her I loved her. She said it back, reflexively, with the same warmth you give to a barista who remembers your order. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't my wife anymore. This was an enemy combatant occupying my house, sleeping in my bed, living in my shadow. And soon, she learned that I am not a man who crumbles. I am a man who builds traps. And she just walked into one. She thought she was clever, sly, discreet, calculating in a way that only someone drunk on secrecy believes they are. But what she didn't know was that I had already stopped being her husband the moment I closed that laptop. I became something else. A phantom in the background, always watching, always 2 steps behind her smile. I didn't ask where she was going anymore, because I already knew. I started syncing her calendar to a clone account, hidden on a secondary device that stayed in the glove box of my truck. She created new entries with vague titles, alignment, chakra check, art therapy, but none of them matched any real businesses. So I tested one. She had energy healing scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m., so I sent a bouquet to the supposed address with a note, "To my radiant soul, can't wait for tonight." The building was a closed-down mechanic shop. The flowers were returned. When she got home that night, she mentioned nothing. Not the flowers, not the note. Which meant she never saw them. Because she was never there. And if she lied about Friday, I had to assume she lied about all of it. I never followed her directly. Too risky, too easy to be spotted. Instead, I tracked her friend Amanda, the one she claimed she was always meeting for spiritual circles and grounding sessions. Amanda worked a boring 9 to 5 at a property management office 2 cities over. She didn't leave the building once during the lunch hour that my wife said they were having smoothies and catching up. So I waited. And at 6 p.m., I texted Amanda from a burner number, pretending to be a lost Uber driver trying to find the smoothie shop. Amanda texted back confused, said she hadn't seen my wife in weeks. Said she was probably doing her own thing again. That phrase stuck with me, her own thing. So I dug deeper. I went through 6 months of bank statements, marking every odd charge she'd labeled as personal care. There were too many. A pattern emerged. Tuesdays and Fridays, typically late afternoon, charges at a boutique hotel 30 minutes away in the opposite direction of her claimed locations. The same room number, every time. For 12, she didn't even bother changing it. She'd become lazy, comfortable. That was her fatal mistake. I called the hotel, claimed I was her assistant, said I lost my keys and couldn't reach her but needed to confirm the reservation on file. They hesitated, but I had her full name, birth date, and even our joint credit card number to validate. Room 412 was under her alias, Stacy Lynn, a name she once joked about using if she ever had to start over. How poetic. She'd already started over, just without telling me. I checked the dash cam in her car, one I'd installed myself years ago when her cousin got into a crash, and we got paranoid about liability. She forgot it was still active, still synced to my cloud. The footage didn't lie. Every time she claimed to be seeing Amanda, the car drove straight to the same hotel. She parked, stayed between 2 to 4 hours, came back looking relaxed, recharged, serene. I matched the timestamps to her texts to me. Long chat with Amanda, she's going through a lot, or yoga was intense, feel like I'm vibrating higher. Lies. Beautifully constructed, spiritually seasoned lies. Still, I didn't confront her. Not even a hint. I asked her one evening how Amanda's breakup was going. She blinked, paused, said, "Oh, it's tough. She's crying all the time." Amanda had just gotten engaged last week, according to her Instagram. I smiled, kissed her forehead, told her I was proud of how supportive she was. Then I went upstairs and started printing screenshots, photos, transcripts, receipts. I cataloged it all into a neatly labeled binder, The Fall of Stacy Lynn. But that wasn't enough. I needed to know who. So I created a fake dating profile. Used AI to generate a face that looked vaguely like the type she used to flirt with on Instagram, chiseled jaw, tattoos, entrepreneur, in the bio. I swiped for hours, narrowing by her preferred location radius. On the 4th day, she matched. With my decoy. Started chatting like it was nothing. Within 2 messages, she'd already dropped our relationship status to complicated. By the 5th message, she sent a photo. It was a mirror selfie. Lingerie I'd never seen. Her phone number. An invite to meet in person, Hotel Room 412, Friday. Just like that. No hesitation. No guilt. Just raw betrayal served cold with a side of unfiltered lust. I saved the entire chat. Even the voice note where she whispered, "I can't wait to finally feel something real." That one stuck with me. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything I'd been planning was justified. I didn't just suspect anymore. I knew. I knew her routines, her aliases, her lies. I had her tracked, logged, mapped, and she still thought I was the fool. Still kissed me in the morning like I was nothing more than background noise in her great awakening. She thought she was ascending. But what she didn't realize was that the ground beneath her was already gone. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her reckoning. And she hadn't even begun to feel the fall. The room was full of people she knew, co-workers, friends, her manager, even her mother, all gathered for the company's spring gala in the rooftop ballroom of a downtown hotel, lights low, jazz humming in the background. Glasses clinking with polite laughter and small talk. She walked in wearing a dress I'd never seen, red, of course, like she was announcing her betrayal with every step, and I could see the way heads turned when she passed, how she thrived in the attention like it was oxygen. I stood near the bar, blending in, nursing a drink I hadn't touched, my eyes locked on her as she floated from table to table with that same hollow smile she gave me every morning. When I finally approached, she smiled wide, surprised, like she hadn't expected me to show up. "You made it," she said, looping her arm around mine like we were still some picture-perfect couple. I smiled back. Of course. Wouldn't miss it. And for a moment, she looked pleased, until I gestured toward the far wall, where a projector screen had just come to life. The room quieted, attention drawn to the sudden light. A short clip played. Security cam footage. Hotel hallway. Her. Room 412. She didn't recognize it at first. Not until the moment she appeared again, this time in lingerie, pressing her body against a man whose face was blurred out, but it didn't need to be clear. The timestamp, the place, the unmistakable movement said more than a face ever could. She froze. Mouth parted. Fingers twitched. "What is this?" she whispered. The room stayed hushed, eyes ping-ponging between her and the screen like a tennis match in hell. I leaned close. "Just a little highlight reel. Thought your friends might enjoy your performance." She stepped back, face strained, voice shaking. "It's not what it looks like." The first act, denial. Classic. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. She turned to the crowd. "This is some kind of joke. It's edited. It's not real." I tilted my head slightly. It's security footage from the hotel you charged to our joint card 13 times. Her mouth opened, closed, grasping for a thread that wasn't there. Okay, she said quickly. Okay, fine. But nothing happened. We just talked. It wasn't serious. I was confused. Act 2, justification. Her voice pitched upward, desperate for sympathy. You weren't there for me. You've been cold, distant. I needed to feel something. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Act 3, blame. I let the silence sit between us like a blade. The eyes on her felt like heat. She reached for her wine glass with trembling fingers, downed it in one go, and suddenly laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. You're not perfect, you know? You think you're so righteous, but you're just a coward who couldn't satisfy his wife. Maybe if you'd paid attention, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. Act 4, mockery. Her voice now carried more confidence, like she was regaining control. She turned to the nearest cluster of colleagues and scoffed. Are we really doing this here? In front of everyone? He's been paranoid for months, thinks he's some kind of detective. I nodded slowly, pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. A new video started to play, her, messaging my decoy profile, stripping for a camera, whispering words I'd never heard from her in our entire marriage. Her laughter died. Her jaw dropped just slightly. Her eyes flitted around the room and found no friendly faces anymore. Not her boss. Not her best friend. Not even her mother, who looked like she might faint. Then the fear hit. You could see it take over her body like a slow-moving venom. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, trying to create intimacy. We can talk about this. Please. Let's go somewhere private. Please. Her hand touched my wrist. I pulled away like her skin burned. I looked her in the eyes, calm as a judge. There is no we to discuss. You ended that the day you put on a dress for another man and left me wondering if I was just your placeholder until something better came along. She opened her mouth again. I didn't let her speak. You weren't confused. You were calculated. You weren't lonely. You were greedy. And you didn't need to feel something. You needed someone new to lie to. And you thought I'd never figure it out because I was too kind to imagine you could be this cruel. The room was dead silent. Every breath, every heartbeat in that space belonged to me. I had seized the narrative, stripped her bare without raising my voice, without throwing a single curse. Just truth. And it cut deeper than rage ever could. She stood there, blinking, lips quivering, unable to decide whether to cry or run. And I stood my ground, not moving, not leaving, because this wasn't over. Not yet. This was the reckoning. And I wanted her to feel every second of it. She chased me down the corridor after the gala like a storm behind a man who'd already built a shelter, her heels clicking like accusations on the marble floor, face flushed with panic and rage clawing at her throat in equal measure. You think this makes you better than me? She snapped, her voice cracking from the effort of holding it all together. You planned this? You stalked me? You manipulated everyone just to humiliate me. I turned slowly, expression unreadable, and gave her nothing. That silence unraveled her faster than any insult could. Say something, she demanded, stepping closer, shaking. You smothered me. Every day, just hovering, waiting for me to play house while you sat in your little bubble thinking loyalty was enough. You were boring. Predictable. You never made me feel alive. I stared into her eyes and replied flatly. Then why did you keep pretending? That stopped her. Just for a second. She blinked, like she hadn't expected logic to pierce through the madness. I was trying to survive, all right? You don't know what it's like to feel trapped in a life that's supposed to be perfect but feels like a coffin. Her words came faster now, desperate, scrambling for pity. I gave you everything. I cooked. I cleaned. I was there when you needed me. And what did you give me? Routine. Silence. Expectations. You don't love people. You collect them. I felt like furniture in your perfect little world. I didn't blink. You weren't furniture. You were the mold behind the walls. I just finally turned the lights on. She shook her head violently, hair wild, eyes glistening, anger bubbling into something feral. You always talk like you're above everything. That's the problem. You think you're so calm, so noble, but you're not a man. A real man would have fought for me. A real man wouldn't have let me drift. My voice stayed level, razor sharp. A real woman wouldn't have needed to be chased into a hotel room to remember she was married. Her breath hitched. She opened her mouth to spit something back, but only managed a gasp. You're doing this to punish me, she said, softer now, the shift beginning, the guilt, the manipulation. You want me to suffer. Is that it? You want me to fall apart so you can watch. You loved me once. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked her in the eye and delivered it like a death sentence. That man is dead. You killed him the moment you smiled at another man the way you used to smile at me. Her shoulders trembled. You don't mean that, she whispered. You still love me. This is just anger talking. We can fix this. We're just broken. People fix broken things. I tilted my head. You don't fix a cancer. You cut it out. Her expression shattered like glass under pressure. You bastard, she hissed. I gave you the best years of my life. I nodded slowly. And you spent them auctioning your soul piece by piece every time you thought I wasn't watching. She stepped closer, rage flaring again, spit flying from her lips. You think this makes you strong? Cold doesn't mean strong. You'll be alone forever. No one will love you once they see what you did. I held her gaze without flinching. You confuse absence with strength because you've never met someone who doesn't need your approval to breathe. Her lips parted, then shut, like she was trying to find words that could still hurt me, but she was fumbling in the dark now, grasping at weapons that no longer had edges. You can't just walk away, she said finally, voice cracking, mascara bleeding into the corners of her eyes. You can't act like none of it mattered. I leaned in just enough for her to feel the chill of my presence. You mattered. Once. But I buried that version of you with every lie you thought was clever. She turned away for a second, covering her mouth, fighting tears that had nothing to do with regret and everything to do with losing control. I didn't think you'd find out, she murmured. I didn't think you were capable of this. I shrugged. That was your mistake. You thought loyalty meant weakness. It didn't. It just meant I gave you enough rope to hang yourself without noticing. She looked back, eyes wild now, pacing like a cornered animal, desperate to regain some form of footing. What now, she said. You just walk away? After all this? You think you've won? I stared at her, voice quiet, final. This wasn't a game. But if it was, I stopped playing months ago. I just let you keep moving pieces on a board you never owned. She staggered back like the words struck her physically. And finally, she was quiet. No more insults. No more guilt. Just a trembling woman staring at a man who no longer cared if she lived or disappeared. The power she once wielded so effortlessly now crumbled in her hands like ash, and she knew it. Knew the silence was worse than yelling. Knew my indifference was the final nail in the coffin she built for herself. She opened her mouth one last time, but said nothing. Because what could she say to a man who already walked out of her life emotionally before she even realized she was still talking? I didn't move. I didn't leave. Not yet. I let her stew in the wreckage she created, watching her try to swim in the very ocean she drowned me in. And I didn't lift a finger, because I wasn't there to save her. I was there to watch her realize she was never worth saving. She thought silence meant hesitation, that because I wasn't yelling, I was broken. But she didn't understand that real revenge doesn't arrive with a bang. It whispers through every corner of your life until there's nowhere left to hide. The moment that video played at the gala, the war was already halfway won. The rest was execution. I started with the paper trail, meticulously cataloging every piece of evidence I'd gathered into folders labeled not by emotion, but by legal weight. Photos, texts, voice notes, video footage, bank statements, timestamps, IP logs, and her own words from burner account chats. I backed it all up on encrypted drives, uploaded them to cloud storage under aliases, and gave 3 copies to 3 separate friends I trusted like brothers, each of them instructed to hit send if anything suspicious happened to me. Then I moved to the financials. First, I severed access to all joint accounts. Not with rage, but with paperwork. I visited the bank in a tailored suit, spoke politely, provided notarized documentation, and walked out with everything we once built now back in my name. The house? Transferred into a trust weeks ago under my family's legacy name, something she didn't even notice because I told her it was for estate planning. The car she drove? Leased under my LLC. I made one call and had it repossessed the morning after the gala, while she was still nursing whatever broken illusion she clung to. She stepped outside in heels and fake confidence to find an empty driveway. I imagine her heart dropped before her coffee did. Next came the utilities, phone, internet, water, gas, all in my name. I let them lapse. Gave her just enough time to feel the inconvenience before cutting them off altogether. A small reminder that the comfort she enjoyed wasn't hers, and never had been. I redirected her mail to a P.O. box, filed change of address forms, and flagged her name under fraud protection to make sure no sudden emergency credit cards slipped through the cracks. But financial discomfort wasn't enough. She built her ego on perception, on admiration, status, social currency. So I stripped that too. I drafted a clean, fact-based message. No emotion, no embellishment. Just screenshots, dates, and a short note, in case you're wondering why we're divorcing. That message went out to her family group chat, her boss, her two closest friends, and the HR director at her firm, all at the same time, 7 a.m. sharp. I didn't have to ruin her reputation. She did that. I just delivered the truth to the people who mattered. Her mother called me in tears, apologized for how she raised her. Her boss responded within the hour and reassigned her duties pending a formal HR review. The office had a strict morality clause she bragged about during holidays, back when she thought I was lucky to be standing next to her. Now that clause was her noose. I filed for divorce that same day, fault-based, with infidelity as the reason, attaching hard evidence so damning even her lawyer advised settlement. I served her the papers at her gym, timed perfectly so she'd be at her most exposed, sweaty, unprepared, surrounded by people who used to envy her. The courier was polite, respectful, even offered her a towel after she dropped her water bottle in shock. I watched from the car across the street, not with glee, but with the cold satisfaction of a surgeon completing a flawless operation. She still hadn't processed the depth of it all. Thought she could beg, maybe stall, negotiate terms. But by then, I'd already spoken to our accountant. All investments we once shared had been liquidated, with my share secured and hers frozen pending divorce litigation. I sent her a spreadsheet of what she'd walked away from. Not to boast, but to educate. She liked numbers. Now she could watch them bleed. The final blow came quietly. I contacted the man she was seeing, found his real identity using metadata from one of her photos. Turns out he wasn't single. Fiancé, baby on the way, a mortgage in both their names. I sent the evidence not to him, but to her, the fiancé. Packaged neatly, labeled, in case you're about to marry a liar. I didn't expect thanks. I just wanted her to feel what I felt, that sense of watching a future dissolve because someone else made decisions for you behind your back. When my wife, soon-to-be ex, called me at midnight, crying, begging, I let it ring. She texted once, "You've destroyed everything." I replied, "No, you did. I just cleaned up the mess." She still thinks she has time to fix it, to spin a narrative, to plead her case. But every rope she could grab onto has already been cut. Every path back to the life she used to know is closed, locked, and burning behind her. I didn't scream. I didn't slap. I didn't even raise my voice. I just showed her what happens when you bet everything against a man who was willing to give you the world, and then watched you set it on fire. Now I give her nothing. Not my anger. Not my pity. Not even my presence. Only the silence of a man who already won. It was her father's retirement party, a formal evening at the country club, white tablecloths, string quartet, and just enough red wine flowing to soften everyone's edges but not their judgments. She walked in wearing elegance like armor, a sleek black dress that clung to her like she still thought she could control the room with a smile and good posture. Her hair was perfect, her laugh rehearsed, her eyes scanning the crowd for familiar faces and welcome distractions. What she didn't realize was that everyone already knew. Her sister, who had once defended her through every petty squabble. Her mother, who used to beam with pride when they spoke about her strong, spiritual daughter. Her father, whose shoulders visibly tensed the moment she walked into the room. I arrived a few minutes later, no grand entrance, no fanfare. Just a tailored suit, polished shoes, and silence. The kind of silence that fills the lungs of a room right before the storm breaks. I didn't need to make a scene. I had made a statement, days before. Her family had the full dossier. Photos. Messages. The video from the hotel hallway. The audio clip where she moaned another man's name with the conviction of someone who thought no one would ever hear it. I didn't need to embellish. I just gave them the truth. And truth, it turns out, doesn't need a microphone. It speaks louder than shame ever could. She spotted me across the room and froze, wine halfway to her lips, smile slipping before she caught it and stapled it back in place. She walked toward me, slow, cautious, like a child who knows there's glass in the hallway but walks barefoot anyway. "You really came," she said, voice light, too light. "That's brave." I said nothing, just looked at her, slow and steady. She faltered. Her eyes darted to her mother, who turned away without a word. Her best friend Sarah stood near the buffet table, arms crossed, face hard, refusing to return her glance. "Why are they all looking at me like that?" she asked, suddenly sharp. "What did you do?" I arched a brow. I told the truth. Her face twitched, lips curving into a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "You really are vindictive. Classic narcissist move. Spread lies and act like you're the victim." She turned toward the crowd, raising her voice just enough to be heard. This man is obsessed with control. He couldn't handle me wanting something more, something real. So now he's poisoning everyone against me. Her tone was theatrical, accusatory, until her father stood up from the table and said, voice low and trembling, "Don't. Please. Just don't." The music stopped. The silence was not kind. She looked around, the realization dawning slow and brutal. They weren't buying it. The weight of her own words, spoken into so many phones, sent to the wrong cloud, stored by the wrong man, was now pressing against her spine like a blade she'd forgotten existed. "You think you're some hero?" she snapped at me, face reddening, voice cracking. "You think ruining my life makes you better? You don't win, you know? You're just as empty as I am." But the room wasn't with her anymore. They weren't defending her. They weren't clapping. Her best friend finally spoke, cold and clear. "You told me he was distant, emotionally abusive, that he gaslit you. But I've seen the proof. You lied. You cheated. And then you lied about the cheating. Over and over. To him. To me. To everyone." Her jaw dropped. Disbelief etched in every frantic glance. "Sarah, no, you don't understand. He manipulated the whole thing. He set me up. But even she didn't believe it by the end." Her voice shrank, words failing, falling into whispers no one wanted to hear. The final blow landed quietly. A man stepped through the door. Mid-30s. Clean cut. The same man from the hotel footage, her so-called soulmate, the man she promised a new life to. He walked right up to her, pulled something from his coat pocket, and tossed it on the floor. A velvet ring box. Closed. "We're done," he said, voice dead. "She sent me everything. You never told me you were married, or that you used the same words on him, and on me, and probably whoever's next." He left without another word. The box lay unopened, untouched, like the last chance she never deserved. She looked at it, then at me, eyes full of something that wasn't anger anymore. It was terror. The terror of being seen with no mask, of being known not as a victim, but as the architect of her own collapse. She stumbled back, hands trembling, knocking over a half-filled glass that shattered on the floor. "Please," she whispered to no one in particular. "Please, someone." But there was no one. Just her reflection in the shards. And me, still watching. Still silent. Still standing. I didn't move to help her. I didn't soften. I didn't smirk. I just stood there and let her see what she created. Let her feel what it meant to finally have no one left to manipulate. And in that moment, she didn't just lose her husband. She lost her audience. Her stage. Her applause. Everything she built on lies had crumbled, and she was the only one left beneath the ruins. She was already raw when I walked into her parents' living room, the place packed with people who used to adore her, family, co-workers, even a few of our mutual friends who had been invited to what she had described as a healing conversation. That's how she pitched it, of course. Her grand little redemption arc. A chance to clear the air, to find understanding, like she hadn't just detonated every bridge between us. But she wasn't expecting me to show up. Not in person. Not armed with everything she thought she had buried. I walked in with a folder under my arm, calm as a ghost, and the second she saw me, her face twisted, not with guilt, but with fury. "You don't get to be here," she spat across the room. "This isn't your moment anymore. You've said enough. You've ruined enough." People looked between us, confused, tense. Her mother stood nearby, wringing her hands. Her father sat stiffly, eyes locked on the ground. I looked at her, then raised the folder and dropped it on the coffee table like a gavel. "Then let's make sure everyone here knows exactly what I've ruined." She lunged toward the folder, but I'd already opened it. Screenshots. Emails. Photos. The hotel receipt with her alias. A printed transcript of her audio messages. "Read them," I said flatly. "Or better yet, shall I play the audio clip where you tell him you've never loved anyone until now?" Her cheeks flushed with heat, panic rising beneath the rage. "You manipulated me. You trapped me. You made me feel like a prisoner in my own life." Her voice cracked, loud and desperate. "You controlled everything. You tracked my phone. You stalked me." I turned, met her gaze like a blade. "No. I paid the bills, I built our life, and I trusted you. And while I was paying for your yoga classes and your candles and your soul-searching retreats, you were screwing a man who didn't even know your real name." The room gasped. Her best friend Sarah covered her mouth. One of her coworkers dropped his glass. Her mother stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, is it true?" "No," she shouted. "It's not like that. He twisted everything." I raised my voice, not in anger, but for clarity. Tell them how many times. 13 visits to the same hotel room. One under my name. One under his. And every time you came home, you smiled at me like nothing happened. You were boring. She screamed suddenly, her voice shrill and shaking. You were lifeless. You never saw me. You thought flowers on anniversaries and scheduling date nights meant something, but I was dying inside. I stepped forward, sharp and precise. You weren't dying. You were lying. And the only thing you ever had to bury was the truth. She lunged again, trying to grab the folder, but her brother stepped in, held her back, muttering, "Enough. You need to stop." She turned on him next. "Don't touch me. You don't get to judge me. You don't know what it was like." "No," he said coldly, "I just know what it's like to be loyal." Clearly, that skipped your generation. People were filming now. Phones raised, subtle and shaky. She spun back toward me, face streaked with tears and makeup. "You think you've won?" She choked. "Is this what you needed? A public execution? You sad, bitter little man." I took one step closer, leaned just enough for her to hear every word over the chaos. "No, I didn't need this. I didn't need to prove what you are. I just needed to make sure you never gaslight anyone again. Not me. Not your friends. Not the man you conned into thinking he was your future. He left me because of you." She screamed, almost spitting the words. "He left because you poisoned him." I didn't even blink. "He left because I sent him the truth. The same truth I gave your parents, your friends, and every person who now sees you for what you really are." She stood there, breath ragged, eyes wild, and then finally she broke. A guttural scream escaped her lips, a wordless sound of a woman realizing the mask she'd worn for years had shattered in front of an audience that would never forget it. She dropped to her knees, sobbing, shrieking into her hands. No one moved to comfort her. Not her mother. Not her friends. Not even her father, who now stood and walked past her without a glance, shame written in every line of his face. I watched it all unfold with the steady detachment of someone who'd already grieved and buried what we once were. She looked up at me through ruined mascara, mouth trembling. Please don't leave me like this." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I leaned in one last time. "You're not being left. You're being seen. For the first time in your life, you're not in control of the story." And then I turned, walked out, and left her to drown in the silence of a room full of people who no longer believed a word she said. She disappeared after that night, not dramatically, not with a bang, but like smoke that no one misses once it's gone, quiet, bitter, and clinging only to the corners of rooms where shame still lingers. The job let her go 2 weeks later, citing loss of client confidence and unprofessional conduct, though they never needed to explain what everyone already knew. Her desk was cleared by HR, not by her. They didn't even give her the chance to say goodbye. Friends she once bragged about, Sarah, Amanda, even the ones who used to defend her every misstep, ghosted her one by one. Social media turned dry. She stopped posting entirely when every photo was met with silence or passive-aggressive comments that dripped with the sweet satisfaction of people who finally saw through the illusion. Even her own sister unfollowed her and blocked her number after reading the text where she mocked me while planning her next hotel visit. Her parents stopped returning her calls. I heard her father told her she was no daughter of mine before hanging up the phone for the last time. She moved out of the city, I'm told. Ended up somewhere smaller, uglier, cheaper. A one-bedroom apartment above a vape shop. Word is she works at a second-rate wellness clinic where no one asks about the past, where the manager turns a blind eye as long as the towels get folded and the register's accurate. The man she left me for vanished the moment his life began to unravel. Turned out he had a fiancée and a mortgage and no interest in a woman who came with baggage and a public scandal. He ghosted her, blocked her, and probably deleted her name like a virus he never wanted to admit infected his phone. I never replied to her emails or her letters, but I kept the first one, the one where she wrote, "I still love you. I made a mistake. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." I read it once, and the only thing I felt was relief that I no longer needed to care. The illusion had been burned away. She came to my house 6 months after the fallout, unannounced, rain soaking through a coat too thin for the season, makeup smeared like she'd tried to resurrect the woman she used to be. I didn't open the door. I watched her from the living room window as she cried on the porch, whispering something I couldn't hear but didn't need to. She knocked once, twice, then slumped to her knees and sobbed like a woman who finally realized the fire she started had no way back through the flames. When she left, she didn't look back. The final message she ever sent came a week later. It said, "Please, just talk to me. Even if you hate me, I need to hear your voice." I replied only once. 7 words. Strange. I don't even remember your name. And that was the last time she ever tried. Because deep down, even she knew, there was no piece of me left to reach. Not anymore. She didn't just lose a husband. She lost the version of herself that could have had a life. A legacy. A love that would have fought hell for her. She turned her back on it, and when she reached out again, there was nothing left to touch. Just ashes. And me? I didn't just survive. I thrived. I rebuilt from the wreckage she left behind, not for revenge, not to prove something, but because I could. Because real strength is silent, steady, and it never needs to scream. Thank you for listening to my story. I appreciate you making it this far. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and tell me, did you enjoy watching the fall?